So sponsorship for athletes. This is a topic that's very close to my heart. It was a personal, endeavor at one point and has now become a profession for me. And it's something that I get to do every day. I get to speak with athletes all around the world, doing all sorts of things. And I get to work with businesses who sponsor athletes as well. So I'm really immersed in it. And what I'm seeing is, from the very start, that it's all about this behind the scenes stuff. It's about the preparation. It's about educating yourself as an athlete and empowering yourself with knowledge and going forth into this journey with clarity of your purpose and how to go about that. So that's what I teach. I don't engage sponsorship for anyone. I don't make recommendations or endorsements. I keep it very clean. So it's very much about education and empowerment. Because what I think and what I believe, this has been my experience, is that you guys are your best, representatives. You're going to be forging these relationships. So therefore it's best that you start them as well. You don't need your hand held. You don't need someone to do it for you. You might need a bit of help, and that's what I'm here for, to sort of help educate you and give you some clarity around how it all works. But this is so much about you having, a sense of your own value, your own worth in a commercial sense, and your values in a personal sense. And then working towards a goal. So it doesn't matter if you're a non-competitive athlete who just wants to run a 5K race in every city around the world that starts with the letter P. I don't know. Whatever it is, it really doesn't matter. If you are going to, you're planning on going to the Olympics, great. It's the same journey. It's the same process. So I really believe that the more you know about what's expected of you as a sponsored athlete, the better your journey is going to be. And it's really quite phenomenal. I'm going to share some stories with you a bit later about, some of the things that I've seen over the last few years in terms of life-changing sponsorship. What I like to do before we really get started, so we're going to look at the mechanics of sponsorship. How does it work? Why do companies sponsor? What are the ways that you as an athlete can become attractive to a sponsor? And how do you manage the journey? What are the steps? That's mechanical stuff. Before we get to that, I just want to spend a moment talking about your mindset. This is particularly for Australian athletes, and I'm just looking, we've got a few Aussies here. So you guys from America and parts of Europe, not so much England, but parts of Europe and America, this might seem a little foreign to you. We like to put ourselves down. In fact, it's our job as Australians to put ourselves down. And if we do really well, we have to say how good everybody else was, which is cool. And it's kind of humility, but it can also be a bit too self-deprecating. And therefore, there's a lot of athletes, unfortunately, that don't think they're good enough for sponsorship, that it's greedy, that someone else deserves it more, that they shouldn't be trying to get attention for themselves. I actually think that's a load of rubbish. The way I look at sponsorship is if you've got goals as an athlete, they often feed into other more personal things. So it could be that you're trying to be a good role model for your kids, or you want to do something for the community, you want to do your parents proud, or you just want to be the best person you can be. And everyone's going to benefit from that. So it's an altruistic thing. I'm not going to get too touchy-feely. I do with my clients. It can get pretty personal because really, this digs into some slightly, heavy stuff, self-worth and self-doubt and insecurities. We're just gonna glance at it. So I just want you guys at this point just to know that it doesn't matter how good or bad you are at your sport, whatever your reasons for wanting sponsorship, you have every right to engage it. You have every right to go forth and try to engage sponsorship that's going to help support your journey. The other type of athlete that I don't really relate as well to is the athlete who thinks that they're entitled. Nobody's entitled to sponsorship. Doesn't matter if you win gold medals. It doesn't matter if you are the very best in your sport. You're not entitled to sponsorship because what we're going to look at a little bit later is it's not about your sporting results. It really isn't. It can help. It can certainly help with your profile and getting the attention of sponsors. But it's really a lot of other things other than your sport that makes you valuable to a sponsor. So a lot of athletes, not a lot, some athletes think that just because they're good at their sport, they're going to get sponsored, they're going to get approached, then they get disappointed and they get bitter, and you know how it goes. Sponsorship's a relationship, so it's a give and take thing. The more you give, the more you get. And the beautiful thing is there is an abundance of sponsorship. When I say abundance, I mean there's enough. There's more than enough. And to put it quite simply, the reason that there's more than enough sponsorship in Australia, in the world, is because what's right for you, what sponsor is right for you, is not necessarily right for someone else. So we have a gazillion potential combinations of sponsorship opportunities. So although you guys are, you might even be competing in the same sport, when it comes to sponsorship, you're generally not competing against each other. A great example is a client of mine in Perth who's currently engaging sponsors that range from her local butchers to a beer brewery to a shoe company, supermarket, and a coffee brand. So do you know what I mean? Like, that's so diverse, and it doesn't even sound like an athlete sponsorship, a typical list of athlete sponsors, but that, they're the perfect sponsors for her, and they're her top 5 list. So, you might live in the same town as her, and you might do the same sport, to the same level. You're going to go for completely different sponsors. You might go for a local real estate agent. You might be connecting with a mining company, which she won't be doing because she's not really that keen on what they do to the environment. But for you, it might not be an issue. So this concept of abundance, hang on to that. So there's 2 things I really want you guys to just get initially. You're absolutely sponsorable. You have the ability to get some great sponsorship, and you're worth it. And there's enough out there. So this is the mindset stuff. This is a high-level skim over, but this is really vital to sort of start your process off. So now we're going to look at the nuts and bolts of sponsorship. As I mentioned, it is a relationship, and it's a business relationship. There's a structure in place. You're giving something, they're giving something. We like to think they're about equal value, and you'll probably enter into a contract. As I said about the abundance and the different fits, so one sponsor's right for you and isn't right for another, it means that sponsorship's open to athletes of all levels and in all sports, because it really doesn't matter about your sport. It can, and it can certainly play a very important role, but it's not the be-all and end-all. Now, I should have edited this slide, and let's see if I did. No, I didn't. I always used to say this is game-changing. It's not. It's life-changing. It changes lives. If you get sponsorship, it not only is going to be paying for your sport, it's going to be covering your costs. It could get to the point where you completely change your life. We just don't know. I've seen that happen a lot. I'll give you a couple of examples. A client who's actually become a friend. When he first started running, he bought a pair of shoes from a shop. And the next time he went in, they said, "You're doing really well. We'd like to give you a pair of shoes." And from there, this relationship blossomed, and he did become a properly sponsored athlete, by that store. And their relationship grew so well that he's now been engaged by them as their marketing expert. They love seeing what he did with all their sponsorship activities together, the way that he was able to promote their store and come up with great ways of enhancing their marketing activities. So they've now given him this job, and he's about to buy one of their franchises, one of their stores. So it's just interesting, isn't it, how they gave him a pair of shoes and what it's led to. And to clarify, this concept that sponsorship is getting something for free, I really think that needs to be smashed. You're not asking for help. You're not getting freebies. Just because you're not winning gold medals doesn't mean that you can't get sponsorship. And really, it's not that hard to get. There is a process and there's work, but it's not rocket science. It's as simple as this. If you offer something that's valuable and of interest to your potential sponsor, then you're going to be able to get some kind of, hopefully some kind of investment from them. That's basically how it works. It's not difficult. It can be, a little bit of work, a bit of time, a bit of research, but that's kind of it. It's really not that complicated. So the reasons, and I think this is really important to understand, the reasons that sponsors or companies do sponsor athletes. There are some that see it as a charity. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's how they want to work it, they see it as a donation. The thing is, athletes aren't actually charities, so they're missing out on the tax benefits. I think it's stupid. They get a tax benefit with sponsorship. The thing with donations is if someone gives you something as an athlete, they go, here you go, have $2,000. And off you go and you do your event. And you've got the money and, you might say thank you to them. I'm sure you would. And then next year comes around, are you going to feel comfortable going back and asking for another donation when you've just sort of taken it? You haven't really been able to give anything back of value to them. I really think that by accepting donations, you're actually missing out on future opportunities. So if they do donate, I think it would be really important to say, look, I don't want to take a donation. I can offer something back to you. Here's what I've come up with. What do you think? Is there anything else I can give back that's of value? So you're building that relationship. You're keeping your side of the street, clean. You don't owe them anything. And I think let's go a little bit deeper there. Go back to the mindset thing. What does it feel like to be donated to? Are you a charity? Do you need to put your hand out? Would it feel better offering than asking? And would it feel better to give back than to just take? So relationships, this is what it's about. Relationships are give and take. And sometimes we get more satisfaction out of giving than taking. So I just think, as you go through this journey, it is a business relationship, like I said in the previous slide, but it's also really personal. And that is where your integrity gets maintained. That's where your self-worth gets developed and, and grows. And it's where these relationships with sponsors can really, really work. Okay, why do they sponsor? Other than, the ones that donate. It's about getting out to a wider audience, so connecting with, new customers and clients, or it's connecting with the ones that they've already got. So as a sponsored athlete, you're going to be helping them with content, social media or their website or, whatever it might be. So you're actually helping them engage with the customer base that they've already got. Helping them in terms of marketing is probably the best way to describe this. So anything that they do in marketing, advertising, PR, community events, anything like that where it's an outbound call, an outbound activity, you can, as an athlete, enhance and further activate that. So going to events for them, doing some media, all that kind of stuff. One of the other things that sponsors often do with athletes is they'll do some product testing. So if they're developing a clothing line or nutrition, they'll do testing with their athletes. And I think that's really exciting. A few of my clients have done that and they really love it. Like it's quite empowering for them to have their opinion as an athlete validated so much by these companies and valued. So look, there's a heap of reasons, but really what it comes down to is profit. How can they use you as an athlete to increase their profit? And that's the crux of it. And I think it's important to remember that. It sounds a bit ruthless, but they're in business to make profit. Therefore, that's your value to them, how you can help support those activities. But the beautiful thing is that you get benefits as well. These are the things that I think are the most obvious benefits. Covering your costs. By doing that, and whether that's that you get financial sponsorship or you're getting products and services such as, physio or your equipment, or even like your health insurance, whatever it might be, or your groceries. I love seeing people get grocery sponsorships because it's offsetting costs. So, let's say your budget is, say you earn, 80 grand a year, and, you work out your living expenses and your sport, in terms of training and travel, and it looks something like $95,000. What do? Where's that $15,000 coming from? So let's say you get $20,000 worth of sponsorship, and you're offsetting costs within that. and you might end up actually having, extra $5,000 in your pocket. Maybe you didn't even get any financial sponsorship, but because all of your expenses have been covered, for your sport and some of your living expenses, you got more cash in your pocket. And I think that's a really important thing, is to know your budget. So through that fundamental part of it, you're going to be reducing stress. As an athlete of any level, any sport, stress is a killer. And as a human, stress is a killer. It's horrible being stressed. Being stressed because you're working too hard and training too hard and you're not spending time with your loved ones. Or being stressed because you're working so hard to get to an event that qualifies you for another event, but you don't know if you can actually afford to get to that final event if you do qualify. It's a horrible feeling, and I think it can affect you in terms of performance, in your sport and in your life. So if you've got your costs covered and then some, maybe you can work less, or maybe you're spending less time, trying to, do fundraising or whatever it is that you used to do for your sport, and you're freeing up some time. That time as an athlete is gold. It's time to train a bit more. Maybe it's time to do some yoga or some stretching or relaxing. Or, like I joked around with some triathletes, some Ironmen last week, you can have a social life. Yes. Do you remember that? So for a lot of athletes, the social life gets thrown out the window when they're in heavy training. So having free time is just, it's brilliant. When you're sponsored and you've got all your costs covered, you've got the right equipment and things like that, you're able to fully participate in your sport. So I said about, if you were trying to qualify for an event, but you're not sure if you actually afford to go to it. Imagine if you've got your sponsorship sorted for the year, you've done your budget, you know what's coming up. You can stop stressing, you can stop worrying, you can just immerse yourself in what you're doing. That's great. I think mindset-wise, that's really good. I know a sports psychologist whose name I've just gone blank on. She's here in Melbourne, and she talks about that, about being able to actually immerse yourself in what you're doing and with no distractions. That it does actually increase your performance and your ability to enjoy it. Because like I said, this isn't just the elite athletes here. This is just people that love their sport. So being able to enjoy it, it's brilliant. Then another benefit is getting to choose your products and services. So money's no object, sky's the limit. And what products and services do you want, do you need to truly allow you to do your sport to the level that you want to? I have a new client who has been wearing shoes for about 250, 300, no, sorry, hang on, what is it? 800, no, about 2,000 kilometres, 2,500 kilometres at a time. They're supposed to do about sort of 500 to 800 kilometres. So she's wearing them way too long, and she runs a lot of kilometres. And that's bad, that's dangerous. She's going to end up getting injured. So the first thing for her was to get a shoe sponsor. So using the right products and the right services so that you can fully participate in your sport. So interestingly enough, these are not the only benefits. There's unexpected benefits, and these are just a few of them. There's more. I'm just going to quickly skim over them. Having a network. So having a sponsor gives you a broader network. Say you want to get another sponsor, that network could potentially be a really great resource for you. The more sponsors you get, the bigger your network, the more activities you're involved in, like community activities and groups and events. Your network grows, and from that you become a more valuable asset. I'll show you a slide a bit later with like a network for athletes. And the bigger your network, the more opportunities you have, the more attractive you become to other sponsors, because you're able to connect them with more people and more opportunities. So network's really important. An audience. Look, it's kind of the same concept as a network. I think it's something else though, like having an audience, having someone to share your journey with. Yes, it can be a bit of an ego boost, but I think if done in the right way for the right reasons, it's actually a really beautiful experience. Having that support, having people that really want to see you do well, people that encourage you, people that share your wins and your losses. As an athlete, I think it's really important, and you'll increase that if you get more sponsors. Your credibility goes up in terms of if you get one sponsor or you get two sponsors, and you're going for another one, because you're already sponsored, it makes it easier. You've got evidence that you're a good investment because you've got proof of the things that you've been doing, such as, let's say media articles or social media posts or attending events. And your credibility just, skyrockets. It makes you, once again, more attractive to other sponsors. Through the activities that you do as a sponsored athlete, from the very start, from identifying your needs and going and engaging sponsors and offering them great value in return, and then actually delivering that and being organised and doing all the things that you promise you do, your skills and knowledge in a professional sense are just going to skyrocket. Especially for younger athletes. These are skills like negotiation and communications and things like that you may not otherwise have the chance to do. Because often when we work in companies for other people, our role is very limited and we're very controlled about how we communicate and what we get to say and the decisions that we make. Sponsorship, it's all in. It is just like you're in there. You've got to do everything. You've got to make decisions. You've got to, decide whether a sponsor's right for you or not. Are they offering the right amount of value? Are you, it's quite incredible the skills and experience that you'll get from it. The team. So I said about audience, but the team that you have, I'm meaning, directly. So your sponsors, their employees, that direct team, those people that are on your side. A client of mine does marathon running, and he's told me, I think it was in a podcast we did, he's told me that when he's out on a long run, when he's struggling, that he thinks of his sponsors. And he said for some people that might not work. It might be a guilt thing. But for him, he actually says it's incredible that when he's out there, he's not just running for himself, he's running for them. And he feels pride. He says he gets that, that lump in your throat that you get when you feel a bit of pride. Like, he probably wants to cry. He didn't say that, but I'll say it for him. But it's really amazing that people want to see you do well. Yes, there's commercial value in there for them. Of course there is. And I said before, you guys aren't a charity. But let's be honest, this is a feel-good thing as well. You can't avoid the feel-good. As much as I want this to all be business, it's a beautiful thing. And to know that there's people that really love what you're doing and want to see you do well and support that, it's a good feeling. You have that sense of team, particularly as individual athletes, which I'm just looking at my list here. Quite a few of you are actually individual athletes. So, I just think it's brilliant. Then the career after sport. So that's a really interesting concept, and that's something when I speak to young athletes, I always say to them, this is a great way for you to develop skills that you can take into your career after sport. And I don't mean that you're going to be working in a sports shop. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's not what I mean. I just mean that through these networks and this audience and the credibility that you're growing and the skills and knowledge that you're getting, you're ripe for the picking. You finish your sport, you know who to call. People know that you finished your sport. They'll call you. They know that you're a great, whatever you might be, an ambassador or sponsored athlete. They've seen your skills. They love your communication, and the world will be your oyster. It's just such a great way to prepare, because I think a lot of athletes get institutionalized. They go from school and having mum and dad fund them to going to institutes of sport and having the government funding them. And then, each 4 years when they've got the Olympics or something, they'll do a bit of a crowdfunding effort. And then they finish their sport and they don't have the skills and they don't have the networks and they don't have the credibility. And a lot of them get lost. I know we see some of them in the media, but think about how many athletes there are. Like at the moment, the AIS has got 2,500 athletes. That's just this year. We're not seeing them all in the media. And I know for a fact a lot of people finish sport and really struggle in life, and it's really sad because they could, had they managed their own sponsorship, be in this position of having career options after sport. Okay, so I talked before about the network. This is what I'm talking about. So the average athlete has something like 790 people in their network. Let's just have a look at that for a second. Just see how you might relate to that. Think about who you've got in your social media networks. What clubs are you a part of? What other athletes are you connected with? Either in groups that you participate in or events that you go to. Have you got followers? Have you got fans? I'd like to think you've got friends and family. Maybe you do some media. Maybe you're sort of been in your local paper, or you do an article for your local or your sports magazine, whatever that might be. So have a look at that, and pretty quickly you can see that we go into the hundreds, if not thousands. So as a sponsor, for them, just being able to connect with you, that athlete in the middle, they can very quickly connect with all those other people in your network. And this is something I teach businesses. So I work with businesses in a couple of ways, and one is about teaching them about effective networks and valuable partnerships. And this is exactly the same kind of stuff. So as an athlete, your network alone is quite valuable. Okay, so I mentioned before about the kind of things that sponsors, what they do, what they're looking for out of sponsorship, so why they do it. These are some of the actual activities that you as an athlete can offer. So social media is just a no-brainer, and that's such an umbrella thing. It could be that you're creating content for them. You're providing them with images and words and specific posts, or content just for their social media posts, or you're sharing their content. So social media is really the heart of sponsorship these days, but there is a lot more. What I love seeing is athletes who get really involved with their sponsors internally. So not just the outbound marketing activities, but the inside stuff. So going into their places of business and being involved somehow, maybe doing a training session or a coaching session, or being their health ambassador for the year and providing some health tips that they use in their weekly newsletter. Going along to trade shows and expos and things like that, and representing them, helping them out, being available, maybe to help, be an MC at a race or something like that. One of my clients does that quite a lot, and it's a really great way for him to promote his sponsors. He's wearing their gear. He talks about his sponsors in the context of what he's doing, and it's a great way for him just to promote them to a warm audience, really. Media is important as well, and you can get that in so many ways. It doesn't just have to be TV and radio. It can be your local paper, especially if it's a local business that sponsors you, or it can be a business magazine or a sports magazine. It's about looking for how is it going to get you a bigger audience, and how is it going to connect your sponsor or sponsors with their target market. Sometimes it's indirect, sometimes it's literally just that you get some more attention, and by default your sponsors benefit. So if you've got a website and people hear you on the radio talking about, I don't know, your favourite places to surf, they go to your website and there they start to see who your sponsors are. So it's not always that you get to say, I'd like to thank my sponsors. It's sometimes a little bit less direct than that, and that's cool. I think, we talked about integrity earlier, and I think that's one of the places that integrity gets maintained well, is by not necessarily spruiking your sponsors at every opportunity. So I said we talk about the mechanics of it. This is how sponsorship works. 3 phases, typically over a year, could be longer, could be shorter. Let's say it's a year. The first phase is getting sponsorship. And for some athletes, that's it. That's all they want. They want to get sponsorship. They're happy. They've got it. They get on with whatever they're doing. That's where so many of them fall down, unfortunately. They get sponsorship, however that happens, and then they take what they're given and get on with their sport and don't really give back. I think it's almost like a natural human tendency that when we're given something, once we've got it in our hands, we're kind of less grateful for it. So what I do with all of my clients, and I'd encourage you guys to do, set yourself up for the next phase. Everything you do in the first phase sets you up for the next phase of maintaining that sponsorship. So you're ready, you know what's expected of you, and it's quite easy just to deliver. you know exactly the activities that you're doing and why you're doing it. And in your mind, you know what's coming next, which is the third phase, which is retaining that sponsorship. So you don't have to go through all 3 phases the next year. If you get phase 1 right and you get the right sponsors and you're offering them right things, and you get phase 2 right, where you're delivering what you promised and then some, and you're maintaining that healthy relationship, by the time you get to retaining it, it should just be a matter of, looking back, seeing what worked and what didn't, rejigging the contract a bit with your sponsors, see what they think, and going straight back into phase 2, which is maintaining. Because I'll be frank, phase 1's the hardest. It's the work, it's the research, it's the time, it's the stress, it's the anxiety of, oh my God, are they going to like me? But the opposite of that is that it's actually so worthwhile to do it properly. So don't skimp on any of the phases, but particularly phase 1, don't skimp on it. You got to put the hard yards in, and you'll get the most amazing results. I guarantee that. The more you put in, the more you'll get out. It's just that simple. So, phase 1. To get sponsorship, you need to identify what your needs are. And, I talked about a budget earlier. You've got to know how much you need and what you need. And then you also need to identify who your potential sponsors might be. Create a big list and then create a short list and target them. Find out more about them. Do research on, do they sponsor athletes? What are their marketing activities? Find out as much as you can about them and then contact them. So actually communicate with them. Make that initial contact if you don't already know them, or even if you do, have a conversation with them around sponsorship. Don't tell them what you're looking for. Don't tell them what you're offering, but just ascertain whether they'd be interested in receiving a proposal, and also if there's anything you couldn't find out in your research that you think is important. Now's the time to ask them. The best information you're going to get is directly from these potential sponsors. And then it's about creating a plan and a strategy. So what are you going to do now? Are you going to, create paper proposals and go and deliver them by hand? Are you going to create a video? Who are you going to approach? Is there any point in approaching 3 potential shoe sponsors, or are you better off just approaching one and seeing how it goes and then approaching another if they say no? Things like that. You've just got to use your time wisely at this point. And then you engage them. Simple as that. And look, I'll be honest, I think one of the best tips I can give you, I want to give you everything. I want to solve all your problems, but that's not going to happen in an hour. The tip I will give you is pick up the phone. Do not just send an email. Don't wimp out. Don't just send a text. Don't pick up the phone, or face-to-face if that's appropriate and possible. Pick up the phone and have a real conversation, because you will be 10 million steps ahead of most athletes, because they just send out generic proposals to lots of people and hope that somebody gets back to them. So a phone call at the start, send your proposal, and a phone call once you've sent it. And be persistent. They're busy people, really busy people. So don't take it personally. Just, take responsibility for this part of your journey. So you're the one that's driving this. So in that second phase, so you've engaged your sponsors now, it's about putting into practice all of those things that you promised in the first phase. So what was it that you offered sponsors to get them on board with you? Needs to be documented in your contract, in your plans, and this is where you deliver it. So it's about being organised. So use your calendar the same way that you would for your training and your events. Put sponsorship stuff in there and you'll be fine. Just keep those communication lines open throughout. So the final phase, and look, it's typically at the end of the year. It might be when your sponsors review their sponsorships. It could be at the end of your competition season. There's no right or wrong. Maybe have a chat with your sponsors and see what's going to work best for them. It could just literally be at the end of the 12-month contract that you have with them. And it's a beautiful time to just look back, see what worked, what didn't, ask your sponsors for their feedback, and look at what you can improve, what really, what worked, and you can just keep going. And just in some cases it didn't work. That unfortunately, no matter what you do in phase 1 and 2, in some cases it's just not going to work. So we talked about relationships earlier. This is just another relationship, and best intentions, great people, doesn't work. And that's cool. It's hopefully not a failing on your part or on theirs. It's just the situation. Whether you continue on with these sponsors or whether you lose one or two, gratitude is so vital at this point. Express it to them. Express your gratitude for their support and for their enthusiasm and assistance with what you do. And get creative with it. Do a cool video. I don't know, write them a song. Do something cool. Be a bit different. Everything that you do for your sponsors is an opportunity to showcase just how enthusiastic and passionate and clever and valuable you are. But be out there. Just have a bit of fun with it. So, how to start? So I've talked you through those 3 phases of obtaining sponsorship, maintaining it, and retaining it. From here, I would encourage you to do something. Anything. I don't really mind what it is. The way that I support athletes is through seminars and workshops, mentoring programs, and an online resource called the Athletes Hub. So it's basically loads of information about starting your journey, continuing it, maintaining it, and growing it out over time. But I really think before you get going, before you start creating any proposals or anything like that, that you need to educate yourself. So well done on attending this session. This is the beginning. This is the starting blocks. And for many athletes, that becomes the stumbling block because I don't know what you guys are feeling or thinking right now, but they get to this point where they go, oh yeah, okay, I get how sponsorship works. I've got to give back and I've got to ask questions and I've got to do research and and they get completely overwhelmed and they do nothing. They get into a state of inertia and they're their own worst enemy because really all you got to do is just a little something. Like with your sport, like you didn't start out being great at it. Well, maybe you did, but my experience in sport, I never start out great. So we break things down, don't we? If you're a basketballer, you learn how to dribble, you learn how to catch, you learn how to throw, you learn how to shoot. And then what happens over time is you start piecing all of that together. And when you rush it, it's just a mess. So it's worth you giving yourself the respect to take a bit of time on this. I recommend 2 to 3 months for the phase 1. And that's when you've got, that's when I'm working with people. So look, even longer if you're doing it yourself because there's no point rushing it because it will just ruin everything else. So if you think of it as a structure, you're building pillars. That's your sponsorship. Under that, you need to have concrete. If you've got sand, those pillars, no matter how strong they are, how great they are going to just fall and there's nothing to support them. So think of this as the concrete phase, and what we build on top of that has every chance of being successful. We're going to go into a Q&A session in a moment. This is what I would suggest as your options for starting your journey. If you haven't read my book, I'm going to give you the chance to get it for free in a minute. It's written in a way that anyone can understand it and immediately apply it. Now, I shouldn't say this because it's probably going to put me out of work. There's a guy in Perth who is a vision-impaired, competitive indoor rower. And he read my book. He's a smart guy. I think he's got a background in marketing. And he went and engaged himself a sponsor who they give him just under 40 grand cash a year as their health ambassador for their business. And he did that reading my book, which cost him $35. So if you want to, you can certainly engage a heap of sponsorship just from reading the book. After my first ever seminar back in February of last year, a lady stayed up that night reading my book, went to her physio session the next day and offered them something they couldn't refuse, and she got sponsored by them as well. So look, I really don't mind how you do it. I'd love to work with you, love working with athletes, but what I love more than anything is seeing you guys take initiative, take action and making this happen for yourself. So what I like to do is provide lots of options. From there, I do a mentoring program, which is for 8 or 12 months, where we work intensively together through those phases and through one-on-one consultancy sessions, through resources, templates, and video guides. You actually create that journey step by step. And then there's the Athlete Hub, which if you're in the mentoring program, you get anyway. But it's basically an online group where sponsored athletes or athletes who are seeking sponsorship get together with me and we share content, we share questions, we share ideas. I put up blogs and videos and templates. It's not as structured as the mentoring program, but it's a lot of the same content for you to familiarize yourself with what sponsorship's about. Maybe you're not ready to commit, or maybe you're at a different phase in your sponsorship and you just want a few more resources. So both of those are really excellent options. So I would like to do a Q&A session with you guys now. We've got about just under 20 minutes. So what I'll do is I'll just put it to you to type any questions that you've got into the chat section of the menu box that you've got there, and then I'll go through and answer them one by one. So it can be anything that you like, anything about sponsorship, and I will do my very best to answer. I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes to write those. Okay, so one of the questions that I get quite a lot is about how to choose the right sponsors. And it's a really interesting one. This process of identifying your needs and identifying what you can offer, and then identifying who your big list of potential sponsors could be. It helps us to sort of narrow down who the top 5 and 10 might be, and they can be chosen in several different ways. So it might be that when you write down all of the different products and services that you use, that you notice when it comes to the companies who provide those, that one company gets repeated a lot. I'm just going to use Nike because it's easy, right? So let's say you put down shoes, you put down bags, you put down, I don't know, tennis rackets, whatever it is. And you go, oh, hang on, Nike can do all of these things, right? So it makes sense for you to go for Nike rather than 10 different sponsors for 10 different items. So that's one way of doing it. Another is, what are the most, valuable sponsorships? Look at the cost of the different products and services and go for the top 5 most expensive ones. So you're covering your biggest costs first. Another, and it can be a combination of these, another is, what about values? So we looked at value as in dollar value. What about values? Is there a company that you absolutely love what they're about? A little while ago, I sort of said there's a company, I use a skincare range called Dermalogica. And if I was going to be a sponsored athlete, I would definitely go for someone like Dermalogica because I love what they do. I believe in their brand. It works for me. Do you know what I mean? So it's about what's congruent with your values. So that's just 3 ways of choosing that short list of sponsors. So what they can offer in terms of different products, what they can offer in terms of value, and what they can offer in terms of values, congruency with your values. Okay, so we've got some more questions coming in now. A long one. Laura, I'm going to answer your question first. So the question is, do I work with Australian sponsors only or overseas sponsors as well? I work internationally. It's so exciting. I'm actually I'm heading over to Asia and the UK in September to November, and then I'm off to the US in February and March. but interestingly enough, most of my work with overseas athletes and sponsors is online. So even my Australian clients, the interstate ones, we do all our sessions online. And look, it's pretty much the same thing wherever you go around the world. I'm just speaking with someone in Africa at the moment, and it's relationships. It's exactly the same process. It's just different accents. And look, some countries, yes, it's going to be harder for people to get sponsorship because the economy is terrible, but it's still about value. If you can give value to a business and it helps them get to their profit, increase their profits, or reach their targets in a year, then, it's absolutely possible. Good question, Laura. Okay, so the next question is from Jane. Who would you approach in larger companies such as Lululemon? I'm guessing walking into a local store isn't going to get you very far, but contacting the head office, do they actually have someone who looks after sponsorship? So I actually know for a fact that Lululemon have quite a different model to a lot of businesses. So typically in a large business, you're going to be looking for a marketing manager or a sponsorship manager. Sometimes a sponsorship manager is actually a different type of sponsorship. It's event sponsorship, but at least they'll let you know when you speak to them and they'll point you in the right direction. Someone like Lululemon and some of the, I guess, not that they're a franchise, but franchise stores, you do actually go locally. They operate as standalone businesses. So, it's not a cookie cutter approach, but typically, larger companies have a marketing and sponsorship manager, and smaller companies would be the local store or if they've got a marketing manager. Okay, so Tui, and I'm sorry if that's pronounced incorrectly. Tui does roller derby. That is so cool. So it's unpaid. This is what you're telling me. There's not a lot of money in the community. You guys are all self-sufficient. But Tui has got a couple of sponsors, and it's a skate company, a roller skate company, and a clothing company. But she's finding it hard to convert that into cash sponsorship, and feels that she's not capable of selling her value to businesses outside of that community because her sport's not very well known. So it's interesting. I work with people in minority sports quite a lot, and it's exactly the same thing. It's about looking for that commercial value that you can offer. Like, for example, someone like you in your roller derby, a potential sponsor for you could be, I don't know, like a mostly female kind of business or a female oriented business, and like, I don't know, skincare products or something, or I don't know if you get your nails done, or maybe a day spa kind of place, something really girly, but where you could run some kind of fun session for their staff. You could even take them roller skating. I don't know how that works, but you could get really creative. You could talk about how the dynamics of roller derby relate to the dynamics of the workplace, and how sometimes there's a bit of push and shove and you fall over, but it's actually the team that gets you back up on your feet. I don't know a lot about roller derby, but you just look at ways that you can commercialize it in a way that's valuable for your potential sponsors. And I get that when you've got a sport that doesn't get TV coverage, doesn't get magazine coverage, all that kind of thing, that it seems a little bit difficult because you can't offer that media exposure. But there's actually benefit in that it is a small, really cool, quirky sport. There's cool stuff that you can do with it. So I think you could get media in like the financial, what's BRW magazine? I reckon you could totally get an article in there, something really quirky and edgy with a business element to it. Look for are there women in your teams? Is there anyone that's like a lawyer or something or works in finance? Just get someone to do a profile to help boost the sport a bit and, guide people back to your team website. I could have a lot of fun with this, actually. I'm fascinated by roller derby. Okay, let's have a look. What other questions have we got? So thanks, Karen. That's really great. Karen's just given a bit of advice around Lululemon, and that is to get a relationship with the local store. Yeah, because they do definitely operate on a store level. So getting yourself known in that store and getting to know them is going to set you up so you can have those conversations. So Janet has asked the question, can age be a stumbling block or deterrent to potential sponsorship? No, because with age comes maturity, experience, and reliability. And that's what sponsors are looking for. However, it's about picking the right sponsor. You're not going to go for, a teenage girl's clothing brand. They won't be interested in you. But, let's say, I don't know, like Country Road have got a new activewear range. Something like that might be more appropriate. Or, a vitamin company that do and God, I don't want to offend you because I don't know how old you are, Janet, but let's say they do an over 40s vitamin range. So that would be a perfect kind of role for someone like you. Janet was actually on The Biggest Loser a few years ago, and she's an amazing, amazing woman. And so someone like you, Janet, would definitely be a wonderful ambassador because you're living the life and, you're showing, yes, you've got to work hard to be fit and healthy, but, using these products allows you to do that well. So no, it's not, age doesn't matter, shape, size, colour, height, skills in your sport, none of that matters. Oh, you're 55, my goodness. You don't look it. So yeah, it really doesn't matter. It's about the right fit. So think about boy-girl relationships. We all have our right match out there. Maybe we haven't met them yet, maybe we have. And maybe there's some that are right for now and not right for the long term. But yeah, it's really just about looking for the value that you can give back. And look, really it's about looking for ways that you can not only enhance and further activate what they do, but ways that you can save them time and money. So if you offer to write, a weekly post on their social media, or you provide content for them, and you take a photo of their products in amazing places around the world where you travel, that's probably saving them a good, half an hour a week. That's 50 hours a year. I know it's 52, but you're taking 2 weeks holiday. So 50 hours a year. What's that worth to a business if they're employing someone to do that? Let's say that person's only getting $30 an hour, but you're saving 50 hours of their time. That's $1,500. Do you know what I mean? You can kind of quickly convert this stuff into real life, real life stuff. So someone's just said they've lost my audio. Sorry about that. I'm not sure if everyone can. Oh, good. Hi. See, this is fun. I feel like we're all just hanging out on a Saturday afternoon, and I don't know about you, but I'm drinking a cup of tea. So listen, we've come to the end of the session. I want to quickly send you guys a couple of things. If you don't get them now, I'm going to resend them in an email to you along with these slides. So just bear with me while I quickly get what I'm sending you. One is a link that you can click to get a free copy of my book. I just ask that you pay for postage. I want you guys to have this book. If you do nothing else with me, read this book because it really is everything I know about sponsorship, to get you started and to get you going through the process. And then if you're interested and you're ready to sort of take that next step, I'd love to have a chat with you. This webinar is fantastic, and I love the way that you guys have all engaged and interacted. It's quite lovely because I go to webinars sometimes and I don't say anything. I'm happy just listening. So thank you. But I want to offer you guys 15 minutes consultancy just with me. So we'll be one-on-one on Skype or on the phone. And that way you can ask any specific questions that you've got, and I can better understand what your ambitions are so I can maybe point you in the right direction. Whatever it is that you decide to do with your sponsorship journey, whether you've got to the end of this session and thought, you know what, I don't want to give back, I just want to get some free shoes, that's cool. That's totally cool. I respect that. I don't judge at all. I feel like you'd be missing out on some other great opportunities, but it's completely your choice. But if you have an inkling that sponsorship has something to offer you, and God, I wish there was another word, because I say that word probably 100 times a day. If you feel like there's something driving you towards it, pulling you towards it, I would ask you to take these 2 actions. Write down what it is. What does it look like for you to be a sponsored athlete? How does that look in your life? Do you feel confident? Do you feel empowered? Do you get to have, an amazing life of traveling the world? What does it look like for you? Then do one thing. Do one thing. Just do one thing. You can book in an appointment with me. You can, like I said, get a copy of my book, which you'll get for free. Read my blogs. Speak to someone. Have a conversation about your sponsorship journey. Write down a commitment to yourself. I don't mind what it is, but do something. It's all about action. Having knowledge is fantastic, but taking action is where the magic happens. So for those of you accessing the book at the moment, if you go, it currently says $35. Just ignore that and click through. It won't charge you $35. It'll charge you about $8 Australian, which is about $5 US. Thank you guys ever so much for taking an hour out of your day to spend with me. I am truly honoured and privileged to do this work. I love seeing athletes get sponsored. My commitment is to see more athletes around the world engage with meaningful and valuable relationships with sponsors. And I want to change the landscape of sponsorship globally, because I think there's too many people missing out because they don't understand how it works. And so you guys, you're on the right path. And thank you ever so much. And I will send you an email shortly with that book link, with the invite to speak with me for 15 minutes. And I might send you something else. I'm feeling very generous at the moment. Thanks, guys.